All right. Good morning, everybody. And sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're going to have this one way or the other. I'm your co host, Frank Spicer, CEO of Metafide and a co founder. I also have co founder Matt Cross and our trusty mod, keyboard Yeti, all the way from the land down under. I want to say good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody out there that's listening, wherever you're at in the world, people listening later. And just to give a little summary, you have Bitcoin pushing 119 right now, making a run at it. ETH is up over 3,800. It's been a pretty good couple of weeks for ETH, sort of signifying the return of DeFi, and we have a lot to get out. So we weren't going to let the technical difficulties stop us this time. We have a bunch to talk about. How you doing this morning, Matt?
Like always, doing great over here. Good week for Metafide. Just we're pushing along. Things are looking really good on the application side of things, and can't wait to get it out.
Yeah. How about you? How about you today, Yeti? What's it like in the future over there?
Oh, the future is bright, both for Metafide and weather-wise.
Nice. Nice.
Um, yeah.
What's the weather like where you are? What when you measure it in kilometers? What is it?
When you measure it in kilometers, it comes in at about a perfect 26 degrees Celsius.
Okay, all right, that seems
Yeah.
comfortable. It's been about 33 to 35 here, so it's been a
Wow.
little hot down here in the American South, but
Yeah.
it's how we like it.
Oh, well, soon we'll be envious of that, like once it gets into summer here, then it's like, mid 40s sometimes.
Oh no, oh no,
Yeah.
that's entirely unacceptable. Uh, yeah, so a few things just to sort of set the table for the discussion we're about to have, right? Started off the market sort of ripping. It's Bitcoin is sooner or later going to make a run over 120, and then it's got a ways to go before it settles from there. You passed the Genius Act a couple two Fridays ago, so it's it's set this table for the adoption of stable tokens in the financial system. It set a precedent that there has to be a one-to-one backing for the stable tokens, and with that you sort of see Ethereum pushing up because people know there's going to be innovation in DeFi. What we haven't discussed very much, I've sort of alluded to that, and Matt and I talked about it for a little bit, is that it could represent a threat to the Fed in the sense that the way to get new money into the American economy and the global economy is no longer through sort of treasury auctions. Obviously that's still going to continue, but because these fully liquid assets exist on the edge and redeemable, you can do a lot by tokenizing these assets, and therefore you don't have to bring them in through a central point, meaning the central banks and then their affiliate banks that lend at low rates can't necessarily enjoy just being the only access to the money supply. And in doing so, like if everybody just quick, lesson on how the money system works. The money is issued at this thing called the SOFR, which is previously called the LIBOR window, London International Banking Overnight Rate. Money gets created out of thin air, presto. Somebody presses a button, money comes into the system, and then it gets lent out to various tranches. You have MZM when it's created, money of zero maturity, and then you have M1, M2, M3. Nobody's called it this yet, but I think it's safe for us to assume that what's been created with the passage of the Genius Act is essentially something called M4. I'll call it M4, right? Which is now you have liquid assets fully backed on the edge, not subject to cascading defaults because they're instantly redeemable right there. And it means there's no need to backstop them on the other side. That's good news for everybody that's looking at building on the edge, because you can verify and trust that the assets underneath are fully 100% there. They're not fractionally lent like the credit system is now. The downside is it didn't take long for these Wall Street dudes to turn around and fuck it up. And by that, I mean, what they did was I saw this weekend plans to, for in the case of J.P. Morgan, they're discussing lending against their clients' crypto assets. So essentially, then taking their stable tokens and stuff on the edge, and turning around and creating credit products that are backed by those. So if those credit products default, then what'll be taken when through the collateral process is people's underlying stable tokens, and it again puts the banking system back square where it needs to be, and that's we need to be taking a hard look at it, where we could potentially see as these new credit products start to get more and more adoption and get further and further out and make riskier investments. I think you could possibly see those underlying guaranteed assets get wiped out because of bad bets by people who don't have any accountability or don't really have to be on the spot because they're going to get bailed out. So the way that disgusting way that this whole thing works is a lot of times these guys get paid on their volume of deals, meaning they just have to move a bunch of money because they're getting pieces of every transaction. So they're not necessarily discerning in the way they're going about the lending, because they just get every bit of credit that they can squeeze into the system. They're getting paid on that volume, and so it's not a great model, and it's again a caution and also sort of a signal to us in the Web3 space that if we're going to create products, you should understand that there's these people out here that are making inferior products, and they're gonna enjoy a run, but the bell tolls for everybody sooner or later, and eventually, if you're making dumb decisions, irresponsible with other people's money, you're going to make a mistake and it's going to crash. So, just my two cents on that. Matt, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I got a few things. I think it's worked out fairly well in DeFi so far with protocols like Aave and things like MakerDAO. But on the other side of things, when an institution took a shot at it, loaning crypto and then issuing credit off of it, it ended up blowing up the entire crypto market. And that culprit was Genesis at the time, who was getting everybody in the industry to loan them crypto, and then they were offering loans. And they kind of created this like circular economy where like majority of the yield was coming from Genesis, and all these people just kept loaning them more and kind of like over leveraging themselves, and they built this engine that ended up eventually collapsing because of poor management of the system.
Yeah, and I think if we're going to take the same lesson and just remix it over and over until people are tired of hearing it, it's that over leveraging winds up turning out badly. I know that sounds like common sense. Like you're like, if I back this with a fraction of what it's worth and then make a bunch of stupid decisions against it, I'm not going to be able to pay everybody back. And yet, that's sort of the way people are operating right now with the traditional credit economy, right? And so you see it with the degens in our space and people where everybody's talking about getting leverage and taking these irresponsible long positions, and they're just like, you might say, well, why wouldn't you just take a position on BTC if you know it's going to go to 200? Just open a giant position and take 10x leverage against it and just sit back and become a billionaire. But it doesn't work like that. We were just talking about this yesterday, right, Matt? Where it's one of those things where the whales in the space aren't going to allow that to happen. Like they see you sitting on top of a big position, they're going to want to come knock you over and then take that position and absorb it, right? So if you put a big chunk of change down and all they got to do is push BTC lower than 113 to pull you in and take a counter position to it, they're going to do it, right? Like it's not it's not a secret. It's it definitely happens with Ethereum. Definitely happens with altcoins where somebody's sitting on a long position and somebody comes in and wipes them out just by manipulating the price. And we could say it's not fair. You could say, well, it might be illegal. But what you can't say is, according to the laws of the jungle, it's not possible, because it is, and it does happen, right?
I agree. I was actually going to say something similar to that. Like, it's the laws of nature. You have big fish in the sea. They have the ability to corral and, push down the smaller fish. And then eventually, they move the smaller fish into one corner. They eat them all up. And then those fish get even bigger and they continue to hunt out larger fish, and they'll try to acquire and eat up as many fish as they can until their bellies are stuffed.
Yep. Yeah, you can't even trust the pescatarian these days. So, I mean, just so everybody else is out there, not to get it twisted, our company is very pro fish. We're fish. We're definitely fish allies. So it's one of those things where we don't mean any harm to fish. However, the market does, and if you're a fish in the market, you get eaten, and that's just what happens. So, something to keep in mind, right? So now that we got that out of the way, set the table for what the market looks like, kind of talked about what's coming in the general market. Let's get into what's going to happen for Fide and Metafide, right? Because we're thinking about these things all the time, right? And if I'm out there and I'm like, well, I want to hold this token, or I might want to get involved with this project, like what should you hear that should convince you that that it's a worthwhile project, right? Like, that's a fair question, and something that founders should be asking themselves. If you can't answer that question, just get the hell out of the space. Like, we don't need you. You're just fucking it up. You're just in the way, and you're doing damage because you don't have a vision for what you're going to do. So, lest anyone think that about us, here's what we're going to do. Right, the first part is, let's get out in the market, right? Let's get the Fide project out there. Let's launch Spot, which everybody out that I think everybody on this call probably understands what Spot is, but Spot is the ability to predict the price of an asset at the exit of an interval. We have a 1 minute, and we're going to launch with a 60-minute, but eventually we're going to grow to 1 minute, 5 minute, 60-minute, 1 day sessions. And you have up to 5 chances to predict it. You're playing against a whole bunch of global players. There's streaks for being in the top 2% of finishers in terms of total amount won and ROI. And then the payout is really a novel way to do it. It took us a lot of work, but it's a very fair way to compensate people for the amount of alpha they add to the system. So if you're right, you're correct, you're early, you get credit for both time and game and how precise you are. So if you're $1 off and you got the exit price of Bitcoin within $1, but you put it in the 50th second of the game, you don't get anywhere near the return that somebody earlier in the game that's $1 off, because it's worth much more to our downstream product offering to understand as early as we can the eventual price of that asset, right? So the more time we know, the more time it's worth, and that's really important because I'm about to explain what comes next. So what comes next is, eventually we want to go through the process and regulatory, rigmarole and all the things that we need to do to make a compliant exchange to offer something called AI informed synthetic derivatives, right? Which is, if you understand the 1 minute price of Bitcoin is going to move $100, and we know that with 80% certainty, then we know that the $100 at 80% certainty, that's worth $80 at the beginning of that interval, right? In an efficient market. Obviously, people will pay less for that until it's fully formed, and you get down to the people are only making a few cents on each derivative. But for a while, we understand that we're going to have this interesting signal, but people are going to fill the space because people like to copy, and imitation is the highest form of flattery. So why not stand up an exchange so that everybody can list their stuff with us, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, we have this really interesting signal. We have hedge fund partners that we're working with already. We've been learning a lot about how to operate in the markets, but eventually we're going to start our own offering, and we're going to let our partners be early to that, and if they want to invest in it, they can. But we're going to do it the right way. And the idea is, so you have these two lines of business along with the gaming business. The gaming business collecting all the signals that you need to make a fully functioning hedge fund, and then you have a ecosystem for your token where token is played in the game. It's deflated because we're burning some out of each game. We're doing buybacks. We're transacting our treasury and doing buybacks, and then we're burning them. So it's further deflationary. So if you just hold the token, you're likely to see some benefit because there's going to be less of them and you're going to have them. So there's going to be a real need for them. That's the utility, not just so there's an effect. You could say it's kind of like a governance mechanism, but really what it is you're sort of voting on the eventuality of the price of an asset, and then you're rewarded for how early you cast a vote, if you want to use Web3 terminology, right? And that's a really fair way, because if you give us a signal, you got a spreadsheet up, you have your own algorithm, you just got a good gut, and you're good at figuring it out, and you can eyeball it. However you get that signal, you put it into the games with us, and then you get a real payback with real value for your signal. So that's part of it. And then what we want to do is our products downstream are going to be earning revenue, and we're going to have this really interesting ecosystem. So we want to allow people to lock in and in effect own a part of the upside of that. Because if you earn FI tokens, we want you to participate in all the ways that we use the system to arbitrage the existing financial system, right? So if you put some tokens and you commit them to a pool of capital that's making a market based on what we have, you should share in that. It shouldn't be just all us, right? So the idea is to take our community with us as we go and give them all these opportunities as a reward for giving us the signal, and let's do this together, right? So I think that's a fairly novel approach. I think this is maybe the clearest that we've ever been in public about it. I also think I know it's dangerous to communicate this openly because of how much people copy out there, but I think our audience has stuck with us and seen us be building through this process, and we're right on the edge of launching here. And so it's about time to start making it known what we're doing. So, we'll do it first here. We'll eventually do an appearance on CNBC or Bloomberg or something, let the cat out of the bag. But yeah, this is what we're doing. And the idea is, as we go through this process, the people in the process who add the value should get first rights at being able to share in the upside that it creates downstream. And I know that seems completely fair and reasonable to say it, but people aren't doing it. And I think it's because they're just thinking too small. What do you have to say about that, Matt? I'm tired of hearing myself talk already, and I know you have some thoughts about this.
Yeah, I think this whole industry is reliant on retail investors. Like, that's what it's always been about. It's not about letting in the institutions in and helping them profit. It's about distributing wealth back into the hands of the people who help and support this. And really, none of this works unless you have the retail support in it. And so a lot of our mission is to create a deflationary system and use math in our benefit to create a token that appreciates over time, where people hold the token and get exposure to AI applied to financial markets, so that you and your grandmother and aunt all can get exposure to the success of these models without having to understand AI. And it's a great way to democratize it and bring value to all the people who have been contributing to it, because each one of you are going to be playing in these games, providing signal. And of course, you want to see upside for the human signal that you provided us. And we think that you deserve it and to be fairly paid out for it.
Yeah. And, I'm going to kick this over to Yeti here. If everybody doesn't know, Yeti, obviously you should know, because if you're in the Discord and you're familiar with him, Yeti is obviously a champion of the people. And he's been involved in actually part of the product design because Yeti's advocated for the way it sort of feels to interact with the reward system, and helped us in the deep math that we were doing to get it together and make it feel right. So he was like, we had originally a yield curve and a limit that went to zero, but Yeti was like, look, that's not going to feel right to people. You shouldn't wipe them out completely if they're wrong, and let's give people continuous chances to come in and keep something when they're even way off. Um, and what he was able to like communicate was, you got to keep as many people involved in this as you can and give people as many chances as you can to win, but you got to reward people fairly. So, we went back and forth and thought about it this way. But I'm going to kick it back to you, because you've been really about being empathetic towards the retail and the users in the space, Yeti. Why don't you think other projects are doing stuff like this? Because it seems like an obvious thing to do.
I think it's mostly self-interested. I mean, you guys have done it perfectly. I mean, it's been like you've kind of back tested, and worked out where to draw that line between rewarding skill or rewarding absolute precision and the best players, and also making it an inclusive, kind of welcoming experience. But I reckon the reason most projects don't is pretty clearly kind of self-interested motives. I think there's very few projects I've ever seen, or no projects I've ever seen, that care so much about the community. Like you guys, it's always front and center of meetings and discussions that we have. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
No, I appreciate it, man. And it seems like, if you look at any time our industry here, and now it's everybody's industry, right? Every time we've made a leap forward, it's been a way for everybody to access what's going on and grow. So, BTC is the best example of that. Having, working stable tokens is another example of that, and being able to put ETH into DeFi projects that create a yield that, aren't ridiculously risked and risk on. Like, all those things have worked out in the industry's favor. And every single time some set of morons gets together and tries to capture everything on the board and run off with it, it wrecks. And it's like, I don't know how many times we have to learn that lesson to realize, like, oh, people are only going to take part in this if there's continual benefit to that, right? Like, it's not like you can keep marching people in and then lopping their heads off and saying like, oh, we got it. But I think I can't understand if it's just like we're getting a bunch of the worst kinds of people in the space, or if it's like maybe a cultural thing where you feel like you got to win the whole thing, or else you're, whatever, you're inadequate in some way. You got to drive a really fast red car to make up for it or something. I mean, I don't really understand what the other dudes are trying to do, but maybe you do, Matt, because you were a VC in the space for a while. You saw what's going on. Like, why are they doing this? Like, why aren't people making more ways to share the benefit with their community, who's the obvious reason it succeeds?
Yeah, I think a few things, right? Like, I think this industry started off very idealistic. You had a bunch of people who were, rebels going out there to change the world through decentralization, whether it was through insurance, remittances, various types of financial products. And now what you have is some of that stuff didn't work. And, a lot of the people tried to work with institutions. They didn't have the money and runway to even maintain those institutional relationships, because they take a really long time to make decisions. And a lot of these, early idealistic people kind of died out and lost hope in the industry. And then as the hope started to die down, what you had is a bunch of grifters who came into the space, people who are just looking to make money and get rich quick. And it continued to attract the get rich quick crowd. And then what you had from that is a system of extraction, where right now there's all this liquidity up there across various protocols. And then people started to build ideas to figure out how to extract liquidity as fast and maliciously as they can from each one of these protocols and bring it into something new, and then create, some type of, system where they, pump the value of it and try to attract like more retail users into that new system. And ever since we've been playing the value extraction game, it's just left everyone broken at the end of the day. And there hasn't been much innovation in the space.
Yeah, it's like we go to these conferences, and you go to more than I do, but we go to these conferences all around the world, and you show up, and people are making stars out of these dorks with like really nice watches and really teeny tiny Yeezys, like where they're out there like with tiny shoes that are not just quite adequate enough, and it's like you're like, dude, this can't be the people that we're trying to be like, right? Like this dude, if he didn't have his money, would just be another dork, right? And you can't keep making stars out of these idiots because they're not doing anything for everybody else that's on the ride with them, right? Like, and make no mistake, I'm not a dyed in the wool comrade that's out there to just sort of, have the workers own the means of production type bullshit. Like that's not me. Like I'm trying to get our team to win. But I think we're smart enough to realize like our team extends to the people on this space and the people with us. The fence goes a little bit further out. Everybody inside the fence is cool. Everybody on the other side of the fence, I'm sorry. But like, when you look at who's on the mission with you, you can't be one of these people that just looks at you and a few people and then run off to some place in Bali and stare at your watches together or whatever the hell they're doing. Like I don't really know because I'm not in those circles, but it's not a sustainable way to build the space. And then the corollary to that, which I'll again caution to the builders, Wall Street's coming. And you might think, well, we know crypto, we know how this works. As much as you might not like them or might have disdain for these guys in Oxford button-ups and ties down there on Wall Street, they're coming for you. And these are some smart motherfuckers. They are not a bunch of chumps. You do not know more than they do. When it comes time and they figure out how these trades work, and you're looking at the same back doors that people in the space use, they're going to chew you up because some number of them are really smart, and they don't get to run billion-dollar funds or trillion-dollar funds by being a bunch of idiots. Like, if you let the game go in that direction, it will be used against you. So this is our chance. We're staring on the edge of the abyss here. We're looking over the edge. We got to get this right together. Like, this is our chance. So the roadmap that I laid out, albeit just a framework, like we got to make that work together, because if we don't, we're just furthering the continuation of the world. And as a metaphor, the way we open up the show, you create a brand new class of money, fully backed, makes it work. And then these dudes come in and be like, let's devalue it. Let's dilute it. Let's make it into something that it's not supposed to be. Let's make it ours and make it nobody else's. And I don't want to live in that kind of world. So that's why we're trying to do this one, which is why, even though they ended the space today, whatever access against me, I'm sorry. I won't let it happen again. But we decided to do the space no matter what, because we got to keep getting that message out, right? So that's my 2 cents. And I'll leave it to you, Matt, because you've been down since the beginning on understanding like what this could mean to people. So any last words before we go?
Yeah, I would just say this is our, probably our last chance to serve the people.
He goes next.
Our last chance to serve the people before the institutions come in here and gobble it up. Like right now, there are a lot of big fish in this pond. They're the BTC holders, the large ETH holders, and I would say the opportunity is slimming because we're going to allow a lot of bigger money to come into the space, and they're going to, have different products that we can't really compete with. They have the ability to loan out more than any of the DeFi protocols because, they're using other people and other math instead of safe, mathematical metrics to make sure everything's still sustainable. They don't care about the sustainability. They have someone to go bail them out if everything wrecks. And again, we're not going to be able to compete with that money. So we need to make sure that we distribute it as much as possible and create those good guardians right now, and then start to branch off and create our own space without institutions again, where, you know, all of the value is relying on the people. And, you know, you set up insurance protocols around that, you set up other financial protocols, and you become the bank, the thing that we've always wanted to be. You know, we shouldn't be allowing the space to be, you know, free to the banks to go operate and take from us. Like, we're supposed to be that.
Yep, I agree. I would say great culture beats big money. It just takes a while for it to happen. So I was lying about Matt being the last one. Yeti, what do you have to say, man? What do you got?
So a couple of things. I wanted to ask a community question if we've got time, or do we move that till Thursday?
Nah, hit me. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, cool. Oh, well, first of all, I just wanted to make a comment. I think it's, you know, something that you said a couple of weeks ago, where these people that are kind of doing these extractive systems on their users will soon look back and regret it. You know, like they're kind of doing these extractions for, you know, maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're doing it in an industry that's going to be worth trillions. And so they're kind of, you know, cutting off their own leg to make a quick buck. You know, it's like they could be doing
Dorks,
so much. Yeah.
cornballs.
Yeah.
They're cornballs, as Ricky would
Yeah.
say. Right, Brian?
Yeah.
You're out there.
Yes. So we've got a question from. Now, I just feel like I just got to pronounce his name. This is a much simpler version of it, but it's from Goronolandia, and he's Piotr. Piotr.
Great
he
guitarist, by the
said,
way. Check his YouTube channel out. I'm a huge fan of it.
I did. It's sick. Yeah.
The guy's awesome.
He-
Super talented.
He said he would write us or that we could play some of his music as the intro music.
Awesome.
Yeah. So his question is, so he's read the newsletter, and in it says that FIDE token launch preparation nears completion, with F-based minting confirmed and distribution underway via Anchor, the custodian for BlackRock, including cross-chain bridging, wallet setup, and claim tooling. So does this mean FIDE will be launched on F, and then with possibility to bridge it multi-chain?
Very perceptive, Garon Olandia. But yeah, I think yes, we are going to mint the token on ETH and then bridge it out to the chains that we're going to have liquidity on. So we've talked about DogeOS. And let's let the cat out of the bag. We're going to do it on Base and Solana too. So we'll announce another chain too in the very near future that we're about to ink a deal with that we think our community will like. But yeah, it's going to be, you know, we're going to be on DogeOS, we're going to be on Base, and we're going to be on Solana in some sequence. So as well as originating on ETH. So there'll be a liquidity pool on definitely the dexes, because Matt and I are firm believers in again, we're real DeFi founders, so I think it's only fair that we make sure it's available through the Ethereum network and then bridge it into other places. So I just gave up a bunch of alpha. I'm sure that our marketing and comms people are running around in the background cursing me. So I just want to say I'm sorry. I had to do it. People, I feel like we got to get this out there, and we'll announce the sequence. But yeah, we're super psyched. So way to notice that. Thanks for reading. And that, as a reward for reading it, let's just give you more information, and let's all do this together. Okay, we got a big thing to do together. Let's do it. Let's do it, but let's do it together, right? So that's what we got to say. Just so everybody knows, find us on Discord, discord.gg/FIDE-token, YouTube at Metafide, X at FIDE_AI, and make sure you're registered surge.metafide.io, SURGE, and get your spot on the wait list there. It's actually getting pretty crowded. So if you're not already registered, it's not too late. We're going to let some more people into the early rounds of the product rollout, but it's already really full. Like we have 140,000 registrants or something like that. And we're going to put in place a priority system. Obviously, people that played our games are going to get some priority. people are going to swap and stake are going to get priority. We're going to announce the way you can move up the wait list, but it's pretty full, and we're going to have a huge launch. We can't wait for it, and we'll be announcing dates pretty soon. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you on the one on Thursday, space at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Can't wait to see you then. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good day.
Peace out, everyone. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
Metafide is the only AI-powered Bitcoin prediction game where traders compete in real time to forecast BTC's price in a fast 1 to 5 minute round. Test your skills against global players. Take on 1x risk with the ability to win multiplied payouts and prize pots. The more accurate and early, the better the outcome. Pre-register now for early access to generational wealth.